All right, welcome to The Explainer. We're going to cut through all the noise, all the talk of war, to get to one really important question. What would a war with Iran realistically cost? I'm not talking about headlines here. I'm talking about the actual hard numbers and the strategic fallout. Let's dig in. So, this all kicked off with a pretty explosive claim in a New York Times report. It said, Trump is planning an airdrop operation on Iran with U.S. Special Forces. Whoa. I mean, that's the kind of thing that puts the whole world on edge, right? It suggests that this isn't just talk anymore. These plans are apparently being discussed for real, at the very highest levels. And that brings us right to the heart of it. Beyond the shocking headlines, what would a war like this realistically cost? You know, it's one thing to talk about military strikes, but the reality is a whole different beast. We're talking about a tangled mess of costs, financial, military, you name it, that could literally change the world as we know it. And that's exactly what we're going to unpack. Okay, first up, options on the table. So what are we really talking about here? What kind of plans are being floated? It turns out it's not just one single idea. There are a few different scenarios. So you've got a couple of main paths. On one hand, there's the leadership strike. This is basically a targeted attack to take out the supreme leader, hoping to create a power vacuum and chaos. Then there's the Israeli-led attack scenario. In this one, Israel would kick things off by hitting Iran's missile program, and then the U.S. would get pulled into the fight. Two very different approaches, both with massive consequences. All right, Section 2, Iran's mountain defenses. Now here's where it gets really interesting. Attacking Iran isn't as simple as it sounds. Why? Because they've been preparing, and their defense strategy is, well, it's pretty clever. They call it the fortress strategy, and the idea is brilliant in its simplicity. You take your most critical stuff, your nuclear assets, and you don't just hide them. You bury them, deep inside mountains where traditional bombs and airstrikes just can't get to them. It's like building the ultimate panic room for your entire nuclear program. So how are they sealing these fortresses? We're talking about key facilities like Isfahan and Natanz. And this is the wild part. Satellite images show them using a surprisingly low-tech solution. They're just piling up huge amounts of sand and earth to physically block the entrances. It sounds simple, but think about it. It's a dirt wall designed to stop some of the most advanced special forces and cruise missiles on the planet. Pretty clever. Okay, next section, the billion-dollar shield. So if you can't just knock out Iran's key assets in one go, you have to be ready for what comes next, retaliation. And this is where the price tag starts to get absolutely insane. To give you some perspective on what we're up against, get this. In just one 12-day flare-up recently, Iran launched something like 500 ballistic missiles. 500. Just try to imagine being on the receiving end of that, trying to shoot all of them out of the sky. So what's our best weapon for that job? It's this thing, the SM-3 missile interceptor. It's an amazing piece of technology. But the cost? Brace yourself. A single one of these costs $25 million. That's, $25 million for one shot. And that's not all. The next layer of defense is the THAAD system. It's a little cheaper, but cheaper here means $12 million per interceptor. You can see how quickly this starts to add up to just astronomical figures. But the money, believe it or not, isn't even the biggest problem. This right here is the real kicker. It's the production bottleneck. In those 12 days, the U.S. fired about 150 of those super expensive SM-3s. The problem? They only make about 12 of them a year. Let that sink in. In less than 2 weeks, they used up more than a decade's worth of production. It's not just expensive, you just can't keep that up. Right, Section 4, emptying the arsenal. And that production problem leads to something even scarier than the cost. See, America's most advanced missile interceptors, these top-of-the-line crown jewel systems, are being spent in the Middle East. These aren't just any old missiles. They are the absolute best we have for protecting our ships and our allies from the worst kinds of threats. And the arsenal is getting drained fast. So you might be thinking, okay, but so what? They're being used, they're working, but that's the thing. What were these incredibly important, incredibly expensive defense systems actually designed for? Because it wasn't this. They were built and stockpiled for one main reason, a potential massive conflict with a country like China, probably over Taiwan. That was the whole point. So every single one of these multi-million-dollar interceptors used in the Middle East is one that's not available for what is supposed to be America's #1 strategic priority. All right, Section 5. Let's brace for a regional war. So we've got insane costs and a shrinking arsenal. Now let's pull back and look at the bigger picture, how a supposedly limited attack could just set the entire region on fire. This is what's called the escalation ladder, and it's terrifyingly simple. It starts with that targeted strike we talked about, but it doesn't end there. Iran launches a full-scale retaliation. In response, they could try to shut down the Strait of Hormuz. That's where a huge chunk of the world's oil comes from. And just like that, you've got global trade grinding to a halt, and absolute chaos across the entire region. And really, one of the sources we looked at put the ultimate risk perfectly. They said, you risk putting the Iranian regime in a suicidal state where it decides to take the entire region down with it. I mean, think about that. If they feel like they have nothing left to lose, they might just decide to burn the whole house down. Which leads us to our last section, the deterrence gamble. This is maybe the most important part, because we have to try and understand why. Why is Iran doing all this in the first place? Why build all these weapons? Well, take a look at the demands being made. Surrender your uranium. Stop your nuclear program forever. Get rid of all your ballistic missiles. Stop supporting militias. If you're Iran, you don't look at that list and see a negotiation. You see a demand for your total surrender. It's basically asking them to give up everything. And that gets us to this idea of an insurance policy. From their perspective, this massive arsenal isn't really for attacking someone. It's their guarantee against being invaded or having their government toppled. It's the one thing they believe keeps them safe. So being asked to give it up, to them, that feels like being asked to become totally defenseless. So when you put it all together, the billion-dollar shield, the empty arsenals, this high-stakes game of deterrence, it all leads to one final chilling question. It's the one that U.S. intelligence is apparently losing sleep over. After all of this, after digging into mountains and building up this massive arsenal, is Iran hiding a nuclear surprise? Do they have one last card up their sleeve, ready for the worst-case scenario? We just don't know, and that's a pretty sobering thought to end on.